Our sewing machines can sew in a straight line and a zigzag. And it's amazing what we can accomplish with just those 2 stitches. We could even say that they're just everyday Lois Lanes and Clark Kents. But if we go ahead and, actually editing corn, can you come in and get a nice tight shot? But if we go ahead and undo this little screw right here, well then we can go ahead and just swap it out for any one of these 60 some odd presser feet here. Looks like our Lois Lanes and Clark Kents just became super women and supermen. My name is Cornelius Quiring. That's my logo. That's my word mark. And Cornelius.ooh is my website. And today, you and I are going to learn all about these different presser feet and what they can do for us. Let's start off with the wildest looking one of the bunch. Real steampunk looking like creation. And this is a ruffler foot. We attach it onto our sewing machine right here. And then this hook here loops around this little sticky bit where we attach and remove our needles. And boom, it's on. Editing corn, let's go ahead and just do a quick demo of how this thing actually works. And voila, I've got myself some gorgeous pleated ruffles. There's even some settings I can adjust on this thing. Like right now I have it set to pleat with every stitch. But if I pick up that lever and move it over, now it only pleats every 6 stitches, like the demo I just showed you, or every 12. And then the star means that it's not going to do any pleating at all. If I turn this little screw here, I can increase or decrease the depth of my pleats as well. I can even sew 2 layers of fabric together at once if I want. Look at that. Dresses, skirts, curtains, pillowcases. The world is our oyster. Next up, we've got this little cutie here, which is apparently called a braiding foot. And there's 2 main features that make this thing useful. This little slidey bit in the front here, and then a channel running underneath. I take my cord or string, or in my case, light string that I'm going to be using on my pretend costume, and put it in that little slot there. I then slide this little bit in the front here till it's not too tight but not too loose, you know, think Goldilocks porridge. Tighten the little screw here so it won't move on me. And then my string goes in the channel underneath here so that the presser foot can sit nice and flat. And I can also sew over top of it. All right, editing corn, let's see a demo. That's not going anywhere. That is on there tight. It also works great to sew on thin elastics. And nice. I've also seen it being used for decorative stitches, rickrack, you name it. Now it's the simplicity of the gathering foot that I think makes it truly brilliant. I mean, there's not a single moving part on this thing to be seen. Editing corn, let's once again see this puppy in action. Now that's a quick way to gather some fabric. Remember how I said it was brilliantly simple? Well, by just having this little bit of a gap here, watch as the needle makes its way to the top. It's going to pull the thread tight and the fabric up with it. And why it does this is so that the top thread becomes a little bit shorter and tighter, and the one underneath is a little bit longer and looser. And you repeat this enough times and well, you're going to get yourself a gather. And we can control the amount of gathering that happens by simply adjusting the tension of the thread by our needle. Up for more gathers and down for less gathers. We can, once again, sew 2 layers at once. We just add the non-gathered layer in this little slot right here. There we go. 2 steps combined into one. I imagine that ought to read well on screen with that much gathering, right, editing corn? Worthy of a coffee break, right? Flat pattern drafting? That's my jam. But I can't shake the desire to want to learn how to do draping. There's a beauty in the freeform nature of it. And so I'm doing something about it. I'm taking an introduction to draping class over on Skillshare, the sponsor of this video. The class is taught by a real pro, Anya a Young Chi, and if that name sounds familiar, yes, she was the season 11 winner of Project Runway. Seeing her show up on Skillshare, oh, it was an immediate yes. That's the course I'm taking. And good news, it's fantastic. Not only does she share amazing knowledge that's useful, but she's also not afraid to be vulnerable and show her mistakes as she's working along, which, I mean, that's the best way to learn. Skillshare is by far the largest online learning platform, with thousands of classes taught by industry experts like Anya in topics like draping, pattern drafting, sewing, embroidery, knitting, you name it, they've got it. What I really like is that the classes have a learn by doing approach, and they're on demand, which means you get to do it at your own pace when you have time. The first 500 people to use my link down in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare for free. Or just scan that code. Everything we've done up until this point has been pretty stitches and details, but there's a very functional pressure feet as well. Like this one here, which is called a darning foot. Attach it there like all the other ones. And then this bit here, once again, goes over top of our needle bit thingy that sticks out. Darning, of course, is a way of patching holes in our garments where we put a little piece of scrap fabric underneath and then run a whole bunch of zigzag stitches over top. The beauty of this presser foot is that every time the needle goes up, it also lifts up. And this is exactly why we put the little bar on top of the little needle bar, which just so happens to be the exact same time that the feed dogs are also coming up and trying to push the fabric back. But there's of course no tension, which is why I can so easily move my fabric around in any direction at any speed that I want. If we want to sew zippers, well then we've got a couple different options. If I'm sewing a regular zipper, I want to use this one because the edges are a little bit raised, which means I can perfectly slide the zippy bit super close to where the needle is. And then there's this tiny little gap here where my needle goes down and in, quite literally next to the zippy bit. Move the presser foot over to the other side and boom! I'm stitching on the opposite side of my zipper. There's a slender version of this foot in case I'm sewing in really narrow areas. The key is just to make sure that I move my needle left or right to perfectly fit inside those little gaps. There's an adjustable version where I can change exactly where this foot lands. I go ahead and unscrew this little knob in the back here, adjust it until I have it just perfect, and then tighten it once I've got it exactly where I want it. Now perhaps we want to sew one of these here invisible zippers. It's actually on the inside. Well, then we're going to use this little puppy, and what makes it special is these little grooves it has on the underside. The curled in little zippy bit fits right inside that little groove like so, and then when it's the right way around, the zippy bit is off to one side ever so slightly. We shift our needle to make sure it goes right next to it on the other side, and we end up sewing as close as we possibly can next to it. Genius, huh? Script and Corn, what's the little gag we're doing this week to promote our drafting and sewing courses? Oh, we're doing it. How meta. Scripting corn, I'm gonna go a little rogue here and do a quick fire round instead. You know, give people value for money. Attention is the new currency, I hear. So, anyways, onwards. First up, we've got this straight stitch presser foot here with this tiny little hole here because we're only sewing in a straight line. It's really great for thin and lightweight fabrics. That tiny little hole means the fabric is much less likely to get pulled up by my thread as I'm sewing. Now this here is a rolly foot, and it has rolly little wheels on it, eh? Perfect for thick fabrics like vinyls or neoprenes, or even just multiple layers of fabrics because, well, that wheel helps things to roll along. Reduce the friction, you know? And then finally, we've got ourselves a cording foot. Think of it as the exact same thing as a braiding foot, but instead of there being one big channel, I've got 3 small little ones. Now, I would have got purchasing corn to buy some proper cording for this demonstration if didn't have a March deadline for this video, but here we find ourselves. Oh wow, that turned out quite more beautiful than I thought. What was all that cord chatter about anyways? Also, this is where you use that triple sideways zigzag stitch. This one here, well, it's gonna help us sew real nice tidy buttonholes. These little pads underneath here are gonna grip and hold our fabric, and then we attach the machine right here and it's gonna slide back and forth like this. So this piece never actually moves. It behaves a bit like an embroidery hoop, holding everything perfectly in place while we're sewing away. I think we need another demo editing corn. Yeah, decent little buttonhole, if I do say so myself. And then if I want to do one of those fancy raised cording buttonholes, I just put it in these little tabbies here. I'm just using thread to demonstrate. Editing corn, we have a whole video about buttonholes where I cover this. Use that little tabby feature to link to it. Thank you. And finally, the biggest hero of them all, an adjustable bias binding foot. I simply adjust this little wheel here so that this little opening here matches the final width of my bias binding. Slide that puppy in there. Slide my fabric in between. I can also loosen this screw in the back here, so that way I can adjust this plasticky bit side to side, giving me the option to adjust exactly where the actual stitch lands that I sew. And boom, bias binding made easy. One simple step. Narration corn here. Are those some loose threads I'm seeing by the part off screen that you're not showing? Oh, you mean these here? Yeah, don't worry about that. That's okay, fine. Yeah, I did have to correct my work. All right, sliding it back in again. Okay, so yeah, there's definitely a little bit of a learning curve with this one. First, I find you want to put a little bit of tension on your actual bias binding, otherwise it's going to curl. But also, as you're sewing, you want to constantly push the fabric in a little bit, otherwise it will slip out. Lift it all up a little bit. This piece is angled up, and so keeping it at the same angle means that it's not going to curl and cause problems right here. You know, now that I think about it, a few of the other presser feet that I showed, they have some quirks and challenges of their own. With the gathering foot, I find it takes a handful of stitches for it to pick up steam and actually start gathering. So it's best to have some long tails at the beginning so that I can go ahead and manually adjust that gather for the whole thing. In fact, it's good to have long tails on both ends so that I can adjust the gather as much as I want, more or less. Also, did you notice how I was switching between various machines for the demonstrations? Yeah, this pleating foot, for example, it only fits on one of the three. Not all presser feet are going to fit on all machines. Also, I picked up this set of 60 some odd presser feet for 50 bucks. That's less than $1 a piece. And yet this one singular walking foot also cost me 50 bucks, so something's got to give. Well, what ends up giving is trying to decipher what this means. Oh, this is the iron opens the mouth to presser foot. Or, no, actually, let me use the if you don't speak iron. No, I don't speak iron, in fact. But also, production quality. This is the thing where the presser feet clip into, and this is the one that was on my machine. This is the one that comes in the kit. In fact, it's very weirdly bent on this edge here, and I couldn't clip on any presser feet to save my life. I had to use the one that came on my machine. Now, if I can return to our superheroes once more and beautifully conclude this narrative arc that Scripting Corn has crafted for us. Well, it's fantastic when Superman shows up to town. It seems like the answers to all our problems, but then after a while you start thinking, yeah, having one almighty person completely in charge, there might be some issues there. It may not be as perfect as it seems. Same thing with the presser feet. They're amazing. They open up so many worlds of possibilities, but there's a bit of a learning curve with quite a few of them. Some of them, candidly, a little useless if I do say so myself, and it's best not to cheap out. It seems great to have 60 plus presser feet, but a lot of them are useless and some of them just repeat functions, and it's better to invest in the good ones that we actually need. And there we go. So, presser feet, amazing, but not perfect, but still really cool. And now, I pass the talking scissors over to you. Which are the presser feet that you feel like are worth the investment, and what do you use them for? I'd love to know down in the comments, and maybe even share the ones that you don't like. Which ones do you find are useless? We can all learn from each other, so thank you for sharing. And seeing as you've made it this far in the video, well, chances are you may be interested in becoming a member of the Corn Cob Club. You get access to exclusive content. There's a group chat you can join. You get big old discounts on my courses, and you might even get your name listed in the video like these folks here. A massive thank you to the folks who are already members. Well, if it weren't for you, we wouldn't be keeping on the lights here. Literally. Lights. Just head on over to that URL right there, or hit the join button here on YouTube, and boom. I'm holding here for a while because this is the part where a video shows up that you might want to click on and watch next. And if not, thank you anyways for watching this one. All right, peace and love, and I hope you had a fantastic day. No, seriously, have a good day. Okay, I gotta go.